Hi, it's Dennis Daly. I've got an assignment for you. Look up Jerry Goldsmith on Google and find out how many more than 100 important movie scores he did during his lifetime. One of my great thrills was sitting down in the late 1980s with Jerry Goldsmith, and the first question I asked him is, did he work better on a deadline?
You can say if you're going to write a symphony, you sit there and wait till you're struck by the muses. But when you're doing a motion picture score, you don't have that luxury. You know that in such and such a date there's going to be an orchestra of 80 musicians sitting there, and they have to have music to play. If they have no music to play, it's very costly, because you have to pay for them regardless. Yeah, I think the deadline is very important. I think that it's an enforced discipline. Stravinsky was very disciplined. He'd get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and he would sit down to work, regardless of what he accomplished. He would always work.
It was like going to the office.
Yeah, that's right. And, I think once you sort of almost mechanically get started, it starts the creative process going. You somehow, it's like putting primer in an engine or something. You have to get it going, and then the magic of creativity seems to take over.
What is it like to see motion pictures such as Patton, or any picture that you've been involved in, with no music? Because I think I'm fairly representative of people who love music to the point that I have rented movies, not to watch them, but to listen to the score and the integration of the score into the movie. But you don't have that luxury. You have, Lois was telling me, input from a music editor with whom you have to work fairly closely. But to see some really important part of the movie completely dry of music, I guess you start to hear things, but I don't know whether I could take that or not.
Well, I see a picture for the first time and try to view it as an audience would view it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be, I don't know. So many of the pictures today by the time I see them, have what's called temp track in them. And the directors will take records and they will track the picture with this music because they get a bit nervous seeing a few quiet moments in the film. Sometimes this can be a help to me, otherwise it can be a disturbance to me. So sometimes it interrupts my flow of concentration on the film. Generally, when I see a film for the first time, it's, as I said, I try to be an audience, but the odds are against me. Half the sound effects aren't in there, a lot of the dialogue is missing, and generally this wrong music is in there, which is distracting.
Doesn't that sometimes happen? Doesn't that sometimes happen in an advance preview where the score isn't done, that they'll have to put something? I remember in the retrospective they did on Gone with the Wind, I believe when they previewed it in San Bernardino, they used the music from Zorro.
Well, that was actually a wonderful way of doing it, to be perfectly honest. That was the process in the major studios back in the 40s, 50s, and even a little of it went into the 60s, where they would preview the film before they turned it over to the composer and the effects and all the people, and they would temp track it and then make the changes. Generally, 99% of the time, the process today is that they preview the picture after it's been scored and everything else. Then they make the changes, and then the music's got to be cut up by a music editor, or else you have to go back and rescore it. I think that way that you mentioned would go on with the wind is a satisfactory, is a proper way to do it. As a matter of fact, on Star Trek now, they were going to preview it this weekend, and I've recorded 2 days. I recorded about 20 minutes of music for the picture, so they were going to use some of that. They were going to use all the new music I wrote, plus temp tracking it with the music I wrote for the first picture. Now, it's very strange. They're going to preview the picture, and later on, as a matter of fact, on the day that I'm starting to record the final 3 days of music for the picture. I mean, they're a little late to do anything, but they'll make changes, and I'll be probably changing it as I'm recording it.
As a layman who loves music and can play it but can't write it, I feel that whenever a theme is established, such as the part of Hoosiers I was whistling outside, and I saw, for example, the restored version of Lawrence of Arabia 2 weeks ago with Maurice Jarre's music.
I want to see that myself.
It's a splendid print. that whenever that theme is reintroduced or comes back in, it not only pulls the viewer back in, but gives you a sense of security to some extent. Miklos Rosa in Ben-Hur had leitmotifs similar to Wagner for various characters. And there was one scene when he's in Rome with Charlton Heston and Jack Hawkins. It's as if he's thinking of his mother while Jack Hawkins is talking to him hundreds of miles away, because you can see his face wandering, and Rosa's score is very evocative of the music used for his mother. When you reintroduce a theme, have I hit it there that you're tying up the loose ends? I guess the best word I can think of is I feel comforted sometimes when I hear that main theme come back. It's if, yes, we're on the right track.
Oh, absolutely. I think a better example of that is in sequels, where the people have had a chance to really absorb those themes. It's very difficult. You do a film, generally the audience is going to see it once. Unless you plaster that theme or something all the way through it, the likelihood of the audience getting it the first time around is rather remote, unless you play it over and over and over again. It's the idea of having a theme for 5 different themes for 5 different characters is a great idea on paper, but that makes it even more obscure for an audience to try and absorb all of this material. An audience is not really concentrating on the music. It's tough if you go to a concert hall and try and remember what you heard the first time around.
It's like the old thing about walking out humming the scenery.
Yeah, well, sometimes people walk out humming. It depends on how you use it. But I've noticed in sequels that these themes have been established, like in the Bond pictures. I mean, you sort of sit there and wait for it to come back in. If
not the theme, at least the timbre,
motif,
the texture, of the instrumentation.
And I know that on Rambo, I was always could keep using the theme over and over again. So by the third picture, people are getting oh, there comes the Rambo theme and all that. And there was a thing on Indiana Jones that I said John Williams, after I saw did a wonderful score, but I loved the theme he did for the first one, the March. And I said, why don't you use it more in the second one? I really wanted to hear that theme come blasting out, and I think he should have used it more. It was such a good theme. I'm not criticizing it, just that I would have done it naturally. And in Star Trek now, I'm using the theme. I think by now is. I think it's
pretty. Are you tired of it?
No, I think
it's a lovely piece.
It should be, now being the theme of the television show. I think it's pretty well established. So that, as a matter of fact, it was very funny. Part of the music I recorded was the theme for the main title, and it was. Played it through, and I turned around in the booth. Everybody was cheering and it got everybody up. I didn't get that effect the first time I recorded it 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But because it's so familiar now with these people, all of a sudden to hear it live with a big orchestra playing it, and the new version of it, newly orchestrated, and we got all charged up over it.
I hope this doesn't open a can of worms. You were talking about doing the Hoosiers suite back in Indiana. Does it bother you that some, maybe many, major orchestras still continue to look at movie music as being something less than legitimate? I mean, I thought music for the ballet that was written in the 1700s was written for the movies of that day.
Well, so was opera.
Right. But I ache sometimes to go to the symphony, just have them drag out, something that Rosa, or you, or Alfred Newman, my God, is wonderful symphonic music. But by the same token, it was written to go with visuals.
Well, I do quite a few concerts now. I'm doing like 20 concerts this year, this country and in England, and and we're playing to pretty big crowds too, which is compared to rock concerts, no, but I just did 2 concerts in Fort Worth, Texas, and each night we had almost 3,000 people there, which is amazing. And the orchestras vary. You go to some orchestras and they look down on it, and you go to other orchestras and they play with great enthusiasm. But I think the important thing was I remember after one of the concerts in Indianapolis, a young boy came back and very timidly asked me to autograph a record. and then he slipped me a note, and I read it the next day, and it vindicated something that I've been saying. Is they said that he became aware of motion picture music and The Secret of Nim, which is a score I did, and he got so fascinated, he loved it so much, he got the record, and he kept listening, and he bought others, and then all of a sudden he discovered Ravel and Debussy, and then Beethoven, and because he had discovered this film music, then it made him curious and thirsty, and he started going into the standard symphonic repertoire. Well, that's happened so many times, and it's something that I say that for so many people, that this film, symphonic film music is a bridge for many people to the concert hall and to the concert music. I mean, many people that come to concerts I do have never sat in a concert hall or seen a symphony orchestra play before. Mm-hmm. And this is their introduction to it. They say, my God, this is a wonderful, exciting experience. So I think that if there is this kind of snob appeal about film music, it's too bad, because it's a very useful thing. I'm not doing a commercial to get more concerts, but it does bridge the gap for so many young people and older people. I mean, it's amazing, these people they're avid soundtrack collectors, and there's thousands of them all over the world. I mean, you think there's a lot of them in this country and Europe. I mean, at the places. I'm doing a concert at the LSO this summer in London, and it's been sold out for a long time. It's not just people from London; they're coming from all over Europe. And I did two of them last year there, and they were from Holland, from Germany, France, Italy, Spain, besides from England. And many of these people have never been in a concert hall before, but they've got thousands of soundtrack recordings, and they can tell you, they analyze it like this music that they would a Beethoven symphony. And many of them have, because of that curiosity, gone to the classic literature. So
composers such as yourself may be the legitimate symphony's best friend in some ways. Then by doing that,
I think we do serve a function. You know, it's very difficult to try and explain that to the management of many symphonies. And I'm not saying that what we do should be put on subscription concerts. I don't think that there's that much of it that's good. I think, certain areas it's quite interesting music. I mean, I don't go into these cities and do concerts. Subscription pairs. I come under the auspices of pop concerts. It's sort of a strange hybrid thing. I mean, people go to pops concerts want to see pop stuff, and people who go to pure symphonic concerts want to see that. So where do I fall in? Where does film music fall? It falls in sort of a strange crack there. But what it does is the pops audience, who really goes for the light stuff, all of a sudden gets a little more interested, because there's a great appeal to film music. It's very melodic, and has certain gimmicks to it that attracts the ear, and it's designed to be attractive, to grab people right away, but not, hopefully, in a mundane or cheap way. So I think that it whets the appetite for people. As I said, let's convince the concert management.
Let's go back to the actual process itself. How often does a movie music composer get a director or producer who works closely with him without meddling? How often does a director, for example, say to you, this scene really needs, visually and verbally, it doesn't accomplish what we want? Do you ever get the request there that this needs to be more pathetic or more foreboding, where they admit the scene just didn't fly and say it's up to you to move it here?
I get that all the time. I mean, a director shoots a picture, and it's there's going to be some areas where a lot of it's not going to visually achieve what he really hoped it would get. I mean, I think it'd be tough being a director. You shoot the picture, you go home from work, and you sort of think you have an idea of what you did, but you don't know the next daily. You see the dailies. Mm-hmm. That's tough. I get that request all the time. Sometimes you can, it's always going to help. The old thing, can you save a scene or save a picture? No, you can't. You're not gonna, if a picture is bad, it's going to be bad. You make it a little better, but it's not going to not be the difference between being a mega hit and a total bust.
Have a score rejected? They hand you a paycheck and say, thanks, we like the music, but we decided to do something else?
Well, Had a half a score rejected in Legend.
Who owns? Suppose you were to write a score. I think it was Michel Legrand. I may have the titles all wrong. Was working on a movie called Picasso or something, and
Picasso Summer, was it?
It might have been. And then the music ended up, some of it being used for something else. If you do a score for Paramount, Fox, someone, do they own it?
They own the music, yeah.
So they could theoretically retread this and put it on something else and put your name on it?
Yeah, it's happened before.
Even though that wasn't the intent when you wrote it. You wrote it for another movie.
No, they used my name. I mean, they put my name on it. But, I've been accused of saying, well, how come you repeated your score in such and such a picture? Well, it was not done by me. I mean, the studio used that music in another film. They don't do it very often, but they can.
Did you have a feeling when Star Trek, when you did that first one, that there were going to be multi-sequels of this?
No, I don't think. When we did the first film, it was a real fiasco because the special effects were not done. I mean, I came in, and the first time I saw the picture, there was virtually 40 minutes of film, and that was it. And the rest was all going to be special effects. And the original person who was going to do the special effects was let go, and he started all from scratch again. And so it was down to the wire. I mean, I finished scoring the picture 5 days before the picture was premiered in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
I finished at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, and then the following, I think, Wednesday, the picture was premiered. I mean, that was a push all the way down the line. Nobody had a chance to think about what was going to go beyond this. All we wanted to do was get that picture done.
Get it out of the way.
So
you began, though, in radio and television where it was constant deadlines. I remember reading most of my reading I do in Frequent Flyer magazine when I travel. There was an article saying that you are the best person to call on when someone else's work goes wrong. I don't know who wrote that at the time, but I just pictured you getting this call at 2 in the morning, and they said, by 9 o'clock tomorrow night, we want this rescored.
Maybe I was 20 years old, I'd do that. No, not now I don't. No, that's insane. No, we all work very fast. We can work fast. I mean, the quality's going to suffer. I wrote Chinatown in 10 days. A case where they changed the score and there was no time, and I did it in 10 days. A lot of it depends on the film. When I'm really taken by the film and I really love the film and I have fun doing it, it's much easier than when you're struggling with a picture that's, you accept an assignment hoping, I can go by the script, and generally is what I have to judge it by, or the filmmaker. And a lot of times they don't come out like you think they're going to come out, but you're obligated to do the film.
Mm-hmm. Do you have arguments when it's over, for example, as to how loud it should appear on the film? Do you have
Oh, sure, all the time.
You're fighting about that, have to compromise?
Well, I guess
you want it to surge underneath, and the director says, no, it's fine there. I just want it to kind of lay there.
Yeah, it's that's the strange thing. I mean, that happens. Sometimes it's too loud, sometimes it's too soft. I mean, I keep saying I ain't going to be whistling the sound effects, but that's part of it. What gets really to be a sort of a nuisance is that they'll think, well, your ego is showing, and I keep saying, look, it's not my ego. I mean, you paid an awful lot of money for this music, and by keeping it on almost a subliminal level, you're not getting the effect of what the music should be doing for the film. I said, look, I'm here. I'm part of this massive army of people making a film that want to make a good picture. And let the music do what it's supposed to do. I mean, I'm the first one to say bring it down, but there are moments where it's designed to do something.
We can always rewrite the overture, so there's, as Alfred Newman and others have done, there's this big flare that you look up at the screen just as your name appears. I mean, you could... I always thought that was a cheap trick.
It's happened to me a lot of times by accident, because 90% of the time when you write a main title, you don't know where the cards are falling, whose name's falling where. I remember when I was doing Sand Pebbles, boy, I tell you, there was a modulation and a crash as music by Jerry Goldsmith came up, and Bob Wise looked at me and said, "Are you joking?" I said, "As a matter of fact, I was. I mean, who knew it was going to be?"
What of the work that you've done for film, what are your favorites? Do you have some that when it was over you just kind of sat back and said, this really worked?
Oh, I think Chinatown is pretty good, and I love Islands in the Stream. It's a lovely film. I don't know. I finish a picture and I say, next one will be better, I hope.
I guess everyone, to some extent, does that with their work.
I think it's the films I had the most fun writing it, whether it came out that good, but it was just fun writing it. Where it was easy to write it. When it's sort of effortless, it comes out very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant flow. I'm having a ball right now writing the Star Trek as a first picture in a couple of years. I've really had fun doing it because it's a big picture. I think what it is that it's a large. Those films are very large in scope. It's a very broad canvas, and there's a lot of action and all of the various emotions, but it's basically really very lyrical. All of them are very lyrical and rather romantic, which is really what I prefer to do. And that's why I like doing these. I get the best of all possible worlds. You can do the action, but there's always a lyrical overtone to it.
Were this 200 years ago, would you be writing string quartets rather than symphonies? Have you ever thought about it that way? You seem to like that.
Well, I like
more intimate sound sometimes.
I like the association of music with drama.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be writing operas. Do you realize how many obscure composers have written operas, especially 100, 200 years ago, that were probably making a fortune, that were probably grinding out 5 operas a year that we never hear of today. I mean, these guys were, that was, as you said, that was showbiz in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And Mozart there's a great story about Mozart being in Prague and getting his shoes shined, and the guy shining his shoes was whistling an aria from Don Giovanni. And, people were singing, Mozart was starving, but everybody was singing his tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was very popular. And that was, as you say, was the form of entertainment in those days. We're doing the same thing.
I'm obligated, I guess, being from Indiana, to ask a little bit about Hoosiers.
Yeah, please do.
The fascination I had is the abrupt changes that were necessary, particularly going back and forth basketball scenes, back into the huddle, saying the word team and going back in. I guess it affords you the opportunity to be very dynamic, but have you faced a lot of situations where there are that many abrupt changes where you have to...
Oh, yeah.
Maybe there weren't as many in there as I think there were, but
no more. I mean, that's showbiz. I mean, that's writing music for films. You have to go with the drama, and that was that was storytelling. I mean, that was the most until Star Trek. I think that's the most fun I've had in a picture.
It was. You're just not saying that because I'm here.
No,
because I love the picture. I was telling Lois, when I want a really good cry, I dig out and watch the last 4 minutes.
I still cry every time I see the picture. I mean, I did before the music was in it. And then we were recording the music. The director, every time I finish a cue, the director and I turned to each other, got tears running down our face. I mean, it's that kind of, and I love that kind of film. I mean, I prefer and love doing people pictures.
If I may further compliment you about it, I saw it in a preview in Washington. A friend of mine had a ticket. He called me and said, I have no interest in going here from Indiana. You've got to see this. You knew not just the cinematography, but the texture of the music at the very beginning, that it was going to be quality work. I mean, I think I had a Kleenex out 20 seconds into it. 20 years, 25 years, and 35 pounds ago, I was a high school cheerleader. We played in some of those gyms, such as Jasper, I'm from southern Indiana, where part of the movie was filmed. I could smell the moldy locker rooms, but it made me proud to be from the area, but it was just nice. The texture of it was really nice.
It really was. Well, the two boys, the director and the writer, are both from Indiana. It's a project that they don't know, they were 10 years they're trying to get this thing
Almost
made.
shoestring.
Well, it was a very low budget picture, and made for $4.5 million. We all did it for love. And it was, as I say, I saw the picture and I said, that's it, got to do it. You know, I don't care how and where we're going to do this film. I mean, it's a beautiful film. It was really just so much fun doing it. And from the beginning to the end, it was special. I mean, I just have wonderful memories about that.
That's good.
And as I say, every time I see it, I get choked up with it. You know, it's a height of vanity to be crying at your own music, but nevertheless, it's...
No, I saw a comedy piece I'd done on video about 8 years ago that my old college roommate I'm visiting played for me the other night, and I found myself just laughing hysterically. And I said, Dennis, you shouldn't laugh at your own stuff. I thought, well, I'd forgotten it. So in some ways it was very fresh for me.
Yeah, well, that's a special film. And it was nice going to Indiana for the first time to sort of see what it's like in Indiana.
Some of us left, some of us stayed, you know.
It was really, it was just wonderful doing, you know, I had been doing, the year before I'd been doing a piece, just the one theme and at concerts, and then I thought to get to Indiana I'd better really do something special, so for this year's concerts I did a whole suite, a big thing. And
a lot of medium-sized television stations have been running part of that under their sports scores.
And some of the networks too, which is
yes.
nice.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to hold you up forever, but a couple of things I must ask about, and that is your association with Nicholas Rosa. I talked to Tony Thomas here, and whether the name, a friend of his, telling me, unfortunately, that Rosa was so ill this past week that he was not able to make his regular trip to see him, that he's very quickly deteriorating. How did that relationship with him start? How long did it last? What?
Well, I was never, you know, I just took a class with him at USC when I was 18 years old, and because my piano teacher Jacob Gimple was a very close friend of Roche's, I would see Mickey over there every once in a while at his house, and then later on, I think the first time I was in Europe was 1962. I was doing a film in Rome, and Mickey was there, and we spent a fair amount of time, and he sort of took me sightseeing. And I really saw him very rarely. And then, I guess, it's 2 years ago now, did a concert in London for his 80th birthday, a royal performance, and I conducted a third of the concert. And Mickey was going to come, but he was too ill to make it. Mm-hmm. So... It's sad, but I just respect the man and admire the man so much, and he's such a lovely man besides.
I think my real introduction to movies, really loving music, was the music of Rocha and Alfred Newman. I remember in 5th or 6th grade buying an old Decca recording of music from The Robe. And
I think we're both the same thing. It was Alfred actually, and Mickey, who really, especially Rocha. First time I heard Spellbound, I was blown away with that.
That was fine. It's a little bit closer.
And that was really, so maybe I should write music for motion pictures. And of course, Alfred, when I heard Captain from Castile, that just really made me excited about the whole prospect. And the funny thing was that I was, in the 50s, was slugging along under contract to CBS, or grinding out one television show after the other, 3 shows a week, and Alfred was, picked up on it and really pushed me. Had nothing to gain from it. He wasn't even running the department at Fox anymore, but he really was responsible for me doing Lonely or the Brave.
Was TV... You don't sound as if you regret those times. What was it? Will you consider it good training? Was it tedious?
Live television was the best training ground I could have ever had. Mm-hmm. I mean, you learned. It was wonderful.
One or two quick things. The symphonic aspect of people hearing movie music goes back almost to the days I was talking about watching Restored. I saw the restored print of the original Ben-Hur with music. And sitting there thinking that here it would be performed at large theaters with a live orchestra. We're kind of going back to that, giving the audience the thrill of hearing the movie music, not out of speakers, but with the symphony orchestra.
Yeah.
Even with CDs, you can't take that the ambiance of the symphony hall and bring it into anybody's home.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Are we moving totally toward rock and roll? Will Hollywood hopefully always have some people there and the money to continue to give Jerry Goldsmith a paycheck and say, we need something nice to go with this?
I hope so. I really hope so. I said that what's going on with so much of this rock stuff, pop stuff in film, it was a passing fancy. It was been pretty right all these years, but this one I seem to have missed. But, I don't know. It's so cyclical here. I don't know. I mean, we went through the jazz and films in the 60s and were wandering around until Star Wars came along, and everybody had to have symphony orchestras after that until Chariots of Fire. Then they all wanted to go electronic. And so, and then they started selling records of... They've always been trying to sell records from motion pictures, so...
You always see that bottom route soundtrack available on...
Yeah, I find a bigger push now with the pop stuff in the films. I mean, I think it's here to stay. I think this commercial aspect of the music is here to stay. It depends on the filmmakers. That's really what it boils down to. The good filmmaker is going to want the right music for his film. That's what it's going to really boil down to.
Hopefully it won't all turn out to be as the Oscars show was. Did you see the Academy Awards, or were you writing that night?
No, I watched them that night.
I was struck with the fact. Maybe I've passed 40 now, that I wonder why many things seem to be pitched to 14-year-olds. It struck me as being a little bit less respectful of the old Hollywood. There was no Herschel Award, I know they're not getting no Thalberg Award, no Lifetime Achievement Award, and I know those maybe don't have to be given every year, but when it was over, I said, what happened?
Well, I think that we lose sight of the fact. The thing I remember was very enlightening to me is we're all talking as we're getting older, we see all these young moguls running around Hollywood. Say, oh my God, look what's happening in Hollywood. All these kids are running it. And people forget that Irving Thalberg was 22 when he was running MGM, and Dick Zanuck was 28 when he was running Fox. So this is nothing new.
We're just looking at it from the other.
I'm just getting older, and they're looking, and the difference, the gap is a lot bigger now.
Now all the producers chew gum.
They always did, I suppose. I mean, it really hasn't changed that much. I think that television is definitely. I think that the whole, we're getting into another area, but the whole media has changed. The kind of reaching into homes, and then all the statistics are discovering that children have money, that young people have money, and let's cater to them. And everything is sort of pushed, and they do all these demographics. And they find so many kids go to movies and all this, and if that's who spends the money, then let's go get them. And so maybe that's where we're headed. I hope that some of these people grow up. Well, listen, I was worried when television first came in that would anybody ever learn anything? All to do is sit and glued to this television set, and will that be the end of intellect and knowledge? But it didn't seem to stop.
Jerry, I think that the real excitement is the realization that you don't know what's coming next. I mean, I don't know what you're going to compose next. You may not know what you're going to compose next, but there's the realization that there will be new music and new themes, things we haven't heard before.
Well, hopefully not.
And that's going to be exciting.
I think so.
Thank you for taking the time to talk. I've rambled all over the place.
That's all right. That's good. My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm glad you liked Hoosiers.
A wonderfully creative and friendly man who left us with a wealth of wonderful movie music. Jerry Goldsmith. I'm Dennis Daly.